My dog Thor is my family. A 70-pound Malamute with a heart of gold, he's been my best friend for 7 years. He's seen me through college, 3 moves, buying my first house. He's my constant. Our life was peaceful until my neighbor Mark bought a drone. At first I didn't mind. It's a hobby. But Mark didn't just fly his drone, he weaponized it. He'd buzz cars on the street, hover outside windows. But his favorite target was my backyard. He'd send that thing whining over my fence, diving straight for Thor's head before pulling up at the last second. The sound terrified my dog. Thor would sprint for the back door, whimpering, his tail between his legs. I'd watch from my kitchen window, my blood boiling. I tried being reasonable. I went over, knocked on his door. "Mark, hey, could you please not fly over my yard? You're really scaring my dog." He just smirked. "It's public airspace, man. Get over it." And he laughed. He actually laughed in my face. The harassment didn't stop. It got worse. It became a daily ritual. I called the police. They were sympathetic, but powerless. "It's a civil matter," they said. They talked to him, he promised to stop, and the next day, the buzzing would start again. I felt helpless. I was watching my best friend live in a state of constant fear, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Then, in late December, it happened. I was inside when I heard the familiar, hated whine of the drone, followed by a sharp, metallic crunch, and then silence. I ran to the back door. Thor was standing in the middle of the yard, panting, surrounded by the shredded remains of Mark's drone. Wires, plastic, and broken propellers were scattered across the grass. My brave boy had finally had enough. A part of me felt a surge of primal satisfaction. He defended his territory. But the bigger part of me felt a cold dread. Minutes later, Mark was at my front door, red-faced and screaming. "Your mutt destroyed my property. You're paying for this. Every damn cent." I slammed the door in his face. A week later, my dread was confirmed. I was served with papers. He was suing me in small claims court for $1,200, $900 for the drone, and $300 for unlawfully denying him access to his property because the wreckage sat in my yard for a few hours. The audacity was staggering. He had terrorized my family for months, and now he wanted me to pay for the privilege. That's when I got angry. Not just mad, but cold, focused, and furious. He wanted a war? Fine. I'd give him one. I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to make him regret he ever looked at my dog. I went online, to a legal advice forum. I laid out the whole story. And the response was a game changer. They didn't just tell me how to win, they showed me how to make him pay. This wasn't about defense anymore. This was about a counterattack. I became a detective. I dug up every single vet bill Thor had ever had. A $700 x-ray from when I thought the stress was making him lame. Check a $250 sedation fee to keep him calm for that x-ray. Absolutely. A full dental exam and cleaning I'd been putting off. That became a necessary $400 procedure due to potential trauma from foreign object impact. I got a prescription for anti-anxiety medication for Thor. I bought him a week's supply of expensive wet food, citing jaw sensitivity. I itemized every single cost, every what-if scenario his harassment had caused. My folder wasn't just a defense, it was a ledger of his cruelty. But I needed more. I needed proof. I set up a camera in my kitchen window, pointed directly at the backyard. I enlisted my cousin to film from his car across the street. We captured crystal-clear video of Mark's drone, not just flying over my property, but performing aggressive, low-altitude dives directly at my dog. I had photos of my yard, proving there was no way his flight path was an accident. He had to intentionally guide it over the fence and down towards Thor. I was no longer the guy being sued. I was the prosecutor, building an airtight case. And he had no idea what was coming. The day in court arrived. Mark swaggered in, confident. He presented his case, painting himself as an innocent hobbyist and me as a negligent dog owner. The judge listened patiently. Then it was my turn. I approached the bench, my folder of evidence feeling like a weapon. I started with the photos and videos. I showed the judge the deliberate, malicious flight paths. I could see the judge's expression harden. Then I handed him my counterclaim. "Your Honor," I said, my voice steady. The plaintiff engaged in a months-long campaign of harassment that not only destroyed our peace, but caused significant financial and emotional distress to my family. My dog required extensive veterinary care as a direct result. I laid out the bills, the X-ray, the sedation, the dental work, the medication. The total was just under $2,000. Mark's jaw dropped. His face went from smug to pale, then to a blotchy, panicked red. He started sputtering That's ridiculous. You can't prove any of that was from my drone." The judge looked from my meticulous folder to Mark's flustered face. He steepled his fingers. "The court will now take a short recess to review the evidence." When we reconvened, the judge didn't just rule in my favor. He eviscerated Mark. He dismissed the $1,200 lawsuit as frivolous and without merit. Then he turned to my counterclaim. "The evidence of intentional harassment is clear and convincing," he stated. The defendant is awarded the full amount of $1,980 in veterinary and related costs. But the karma wasn't finished. The judge had one more thing to add. "Furthermore, the court is compelled to report this matter to the Federal Aviation Administration. The flight logs and video evidence appear to show clear violations of FAA regulations, including flying well above the legal altitude limit, operating beyond visual line of sight, and reckless endangerment of people and animals." Mark was no longer just a loser in small claims court. He was facing a federal investigation that would likely strip him of his ability to ever legally fly a drone again. The man who laughed in my face, who terrorized my dog for sport, was now utterly silent, his head bowed in defeat. I walked out of that courtroom, the papers in my hand, feeling like a victory scroll. I didn't look back. I took Thor for a long walk when we got home. The backyard was silent, no buzzing, no whimpers, just peace. The FAA investigation wrapped up a few months later. Mark was hit with a hefty fine and a permanent ban on operating drones. He eventually moved away, too humiliated to show his face in the neighborhood. He thought the law was a tool for his petty revenge. He never imagined it could be a shield for the innocent, and a sword for karma. He tried to sue me for $1,200. In return, he lost $2,000, his hobby, his reputation, and his home. All because he couldn't leave a good dog alone. For a man who loved to fly so high, his crash back down to earth was spectacular. Karma had finally caught up.